Hello everybody, welcome back to the channel. This is Hunter from Outten Astrophotography, and I got a weird one for you today because we're really diving deep into the catalog of very obscure, deep sky objects that are in the night sky. And I'm pretty sure you have never heard of this thing because I've only heard about it since I started imaging it. Tonight, we're going to be going after a very bizarre looking planetary nebula in the constellation of Draco. This is Kohoutek 1-6. I ask myself this question a lot. Why do I keep doing this to myself? I'm always trying to look for deep sky objects that are very unusual and not really imaged at all. In fact, when I was kind of researching this target, when I was kind of doing some random viewing inside a stellarium, because there is HA and O3 surveys that are available right from the software itself, that's where I go to look for some very obscure looking, targets. And of course, planetary nebulas are definitely my thing. And this one really caught my eye too randomly, not too far away from the Cat's Eye Nebula. That's like the most famous, I would say, planetary nebula in Draco, or just in general, because this one kind of resembles a comet because of its very irregular shape. And there is literally maybe 1 or 2 images I have found online of this thing. So it is very rarely imaged, and I want to bring this justice because looking at some of the structure that I've seen from the surveys, it resembles a comet. It's quite cool, as a matter of fact. It's more responsive in hydrogen alpha than it is oxygen 3, and there's just little about it. So doing some digging online just to try to find any sort of, information about this target, it does have a PK category number as PK 107 plus 21.1, can also be named as K1-6, or from where it's originated from is Kohoutek 1-6 because of a Czech Republic astronomer all the way back in 1962 was the one that discovered this. So kind of surprising for being how faint this is, and it was discovered back in the 60s, where this has like a weird binary star setup in the center where this dying star is, and there is a bit of a bow shock too because of the intertwining going on, like the ISM, of causing this kind of like bow shock jet out from it. So it's like a irregular planetary nebula. It's not the perfectly circular ones like we just did with Abell 39. This one has got some really odd structure, and it has this bow shock that kind of resembles a comet. And any name for this that I have seen being thrown around for is called the Sleepy Eye Nebula, and I don't really think that's a very appropriate name for it because, well, like I said, it's like a comet. So in my books, it's called the Comet Nebula. So I did start this project a couple of nights ago. I've got about 4 nights worth of hydrogen alpha and oxygen 3. I'm going to be having some more clear skies tonight, and with the moon going away, I'm going to roughly probably end up with about 50 hours of exposure time, which is really, really good for this project. I think that's going to be enough. I can go down a little bit later on down the line if I really want to add some more integration, because not only that there is narrowband in this region, there's actually some pretty strong IFN in the broadband spectrum. So I'm probably going to go back here and do some broadband and kind of blend it together to kind of do this justice, because there's some really cool structure of the IFN that runs right through this portions of Draco, because it's kind of like a counterpart to the Polaris flare. So we're going to go ahead and step inside of the Shellos Observatory, and we're going to be looking at what kind of equipment we're going to be using for this project. Okay, so we're inside of the Shellos Observatory right now, and this is the setup we are going to be using. I know you've seen it 1,000 times, but it's definitely, you know, the go-to setup that I have set up here until I get some larger aperture down the line. But it goes to show you that even, you know, a little bit of some smaller aperture, like a 6-inch, can get a lot of justice done with some of these targets. So I am going to be using my 6-inch Newtonian telescope from Skywatcher. This is the Quattro 150p, which is a very fast Newtonian telescope too, especially with the coma corrector I'm using, brings it down to f3.5. So we got some decent light gathering capabilities and a very fast focal ratio, so we can collect data pretty darn fast. I am using my monochrome camera right now from ZWO. It's the ZWO ASI 5A5mm Pro. And then inside of the filter wheel here, I'm going to be using 2 separate filters, one for hydrogen alpha, one for oxygen 3. But I'm going to be capturing twice as much as hydrogen alpha than it will oxygen 3, just because it's a little bit more responsive in the HA spectrum rather than O3, which is kind of unusual for planetary nebula since they really like to shine more in the oxygen spectrum. But I'm going to be using it from a company called Antlia. It's the Antlia Edge. They're 4.5 nanometer bandpass, and they are adjusted to work down to f3, which is perfect for this setup here. Controlling everything, I'm going to be using Nina with a Melee 4-quieter CPC. Powering everything, of course, is the SV241 Pro power box, which powers everything that I have running for this setup. Tracking everything would be the ZWO AM5 Streamwave gear mount, the powerhouse that this thing has been since the failure of my Ioptron Gem 28 mount from that snow squall. Guiding everything, we're going to be with the SV Bony 60mm guide scope and the guide camera choice, the ASI 678 mono for this complete package here, as we're going to be trying to go after this very, you know, unusual and kind of elusive planetary nebula. So we're going to wait for nightfall. We're going to head back inside. I'm going to show you exactly where to find this really weird planetary nebula inside of Nina, and I'm going to show you exactly what the individual cells will look like here in just a moment. Alright, we're on the computer now. I've already started imaging for this evening, and we're going to check out exactly where this planetary nebula is located in the northern sky. So we're in here with Nina right now. We're going to go over towards the framing wizard here, and we're going to type in the PK number here, which is PK 107 plus 21.1. And it does pop up in the list there once we load it up. And this is the reference of where it is. So we have the Cat's Eye Nebula over towards this way. This is the constellation of Draco. You have Cepheus here. You have Ursa Minor that goes way up to the top of the screen. So right towards like the bottom portions of these 2 stars here, if you point over, that's exactly where this is. So when we zoom in a little bit closer and we go ahead and load the image here, we're going to see a much bigger difference in exactly where this is. So I'm going to do the field of view down to like 2 degrees. And there we have it. So we do have a decently bright star that's right near the core of where this planetary nebula is. You can see right here, PK 107 plus 21.1. And you have this fanning motion here over in this direction. That's where I call it the Comet Nebula. So going over towards the sequence, right now for this imaging session, I'm just capturing hydrogen alpha throughout the rest of tonight just to kind of finish it up. But I can get you a little bit of a preview of what this looks like. Here is a 5-minute sub here, and you can see there, you can't really see much going on. You see a little bit of some nebulosity right here, but if we go over towards the live stack, as a matter of fact, we have about 27 frames stack. Looks like it had like 2 satellites that are passing through, but you're now starting to see some more structure here. This is the core, what I would call like the nucleus of the Planetary Nebula, and then off in this direction is that fan shape, or like a comet shape for this target. So we're going to run one more night here of this. I'm going to be pushing probably close to about 50 hours worth of data. We're going to go ahead and stack all the data in PixInsight, and I will see you there. Okay, now after the past couple of nights, I was able to get about Okay, so from the past couple of nights, I was able to get about 58 hours of exposure time, combining of hydrogen alpha and oxygen 3, and I went ahead and went into PixInsight, stacked all the data, and we're going to see the results of this very unusually weird planetary nebula. So, going inside of PixInsight here, I have my 2 files. These are my stacked files. This one right here is the hydrogen alpha. And you can see what I'm talking about with that comet structure right there. This is definitely the stronger bandpass of this target here. We have the core, we have that 2 binary stars right here that's responsible for this planetary nebula, but you also have like this kind of comet shape like fanning out from the side, and it goes pretty far too. It goes up to like right here. And if you look faintly in the background too, there's a little bit of some background HA, which we can definitely be able to pull out. And this is the oxygen here. The oxygen's not that strong. As you can see, it's basically right near the central core of the planetary nebula, where we do have some oxygen data. But besides that, nothing really much to go off of. I spent a lot more time with hydrogen alpha, roughly getting about 40 hours on that, and I'm getting roughly about 18 or so when we're looking at the oxygen 3, because I knew it wasn't that, strong in that signal. So what I normally like to do a lot of times is I went ahead and did some dynamic background extraction here, so we can, fix up the backgrounds a little bit, starting off with the O3. Use some blur exterminator so we can, make the stars nice and sharp. And I kind of had to shrink the stars down a little bit so it doesn't outshine the planetary nebula. And then going through and stretching the oxygen 3 data. As you can see, it's nothing really too much to harp on. But I did the same exact thing when I did with the hydrogen alpha. We went ahead and did some flux calibration because I use multi-scale gradient correction for this, since there is some files for it, which is really, really handy. It just makes things so much easier in the background, especially for these little brighter areas off to the side. When I run MGC, everything worked quite nicely. Did some blur exterminator as well. And then I went ahead and stretched the image here. And then this is what we're left with the multi-scale adaptive stretch. So what I do after this point here, I usually don't do any color calibration or anything, because I am working with narrowband data. So when I bring them all together here, this is what it looks like, combined together. Looks kind of rough, I know. So we have to really do some work on it, because the hydrogen alpha signal is obviously a lot stronger than the oxygen. So what I ended up doing is cropping out the area of, where I'm going to be working with. And I did some narrowband normalization to kind of, bring things back a little bit. And you start to see a little bit more of the hydrogen alpha in the background starting to show up with the reds. You can start to see a little bit more of the structure with the planetary nebula in this comet shape. And then I did a lot, and I mean a lot, of masking for this after I removed the stars. And you can see things don't look all that great, so I had to constantly use some masking to be able to bring out more of the color and just more of the signal. I had to kind of go really slow with it, just to kind of do little by little by little without going, overboard with it. End up doing a little bit of some noise exterminator. So it doesn't, ruin the whole entire image. But then, the background is a little bit bright here, but you become to find out, if you look really closely, there's actually a couple of some galaxies there hidden in the background. And we're starting to see more of the intricate structure of the central portions of the Planetary Nebula. I did some histogram transformations here to kind of darken up the background a little bit. I did a little bit more of some masking in the end and some curves transformation just to kind of, strengthen up the center of this Planetary Nebula, get some really nice color. And then I had to work in the oxygen because the oxygen signal was very, very weak at this point. So I did some masking with my oxygen 3 data, put it right near the core, and there we go. We brought the oxygen back here in the center portions of it. Still did some work there and trying to bring up more of the background HA signal. Some minor adjustments here and there. Did some more masking to bring out the more of the comet shape here of this Planetary Nebula. And right off of the bat here, I put the stars right back into place. And this is the final image here. This is this really cool Planetary Nebula. It's not an easy one, that is for sure, but I really love how this turned out. I was able to fix the stars up because they were really, really, magenta at the point. There is some nice scripts inside of PixInsight to get rid of that. If you ever run into this problem with like HOO or SHO and you have more of those magenta stars, if you went to scripts, utilities, and there is a utility called correct magenta stars, and that fixes that quite well. But I really like how the background HA is really shining out of here. It's not, super strong. It's a very weak signal, but you are able to bring that out. But yeah, this is definitely like one of the most unique Planetary nebulas I have done so far. And like I said before, many times in the video, there's really not much in the way of photographs of this thing. I found maybe 2 at the most. So definitely, if you are looking for a challenge and you want something to, that really challenge you in your imaging journey ahead, and if you have the decent enough skies to do it, I definitely highly recommend this one. I would love to see, a little bit more further integration of, exposure times with that. And if you're interested in doing a collaboration of combining all of our data together, please let me know by my email, outtenastrophotography@gmail.com. I would really love to get a really nice view of this so we can, present it out to the world that, this Planetary Nebula is definitely something to see. So I hope you enjoyed the video. Hope this inspired you to go look for, very unique objects that you don't typically see photographed in the night sky, because once you start imaging the same stuff over and over again every single year, it does get tiresome. And now I'm at the point, 6 going on 7 years into this hobby of doing astrophotography. I want to challenge myself with some very unique targets that have not really been shown the love that it is, because you can always find that diamond in the rough if you go looking hard enough for. So hope you enjoyed the video. Leave a like, comment, subscribe to the channel. Be sure to check out Astroprints. I'm always creating some new stuff here, and here soon we're going to be having a Memorial Day sale going in towards next weekend, so be on the lookout for that. And if you have any other planetary nebulas that you want me to go check out, because I'm always looking for some new targets, please let me know down below. So clear skies as always, and I'll see you in the next video. Cheers.